Welcome back to the Georgia First Show. Today we're going to talk about an interesting story, one that you probably didn't hear in the mainstream news coverage, but it was a topic of interest that we've been talking about here for the last month on Channel 22, and it actually received a little bit of coverage in the local newspapers as well. Joining me here in the studio, though, is my good friend and a former guest here on the Georgia First Show, Mr. Gene Morris. Gene, thanks and welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
Well, Gene, first of all, you're the county historian here in Henry County, and I love to sit and talk to you because you are just a wealth of information about this place that's home for so many of us.
Great story, isn't it?
It is. Henry County is just one wonderful story after another.
Yes.
And for those of you that did not see the former show that we did with Gene just several months ago, we talked about some of the historical things in and around Henry County. And over the next few months and the next year or so, we're going to try to do some more shows and talk about some of those things that, you know, we don't want to lose our history. We don't want to lose those memories of things that made our community what it is.
Well, and it happens so easily if we're not conscientious about trying to preserve it.
It does, and you know, as the older generation passes off the scene, if we don't do a good job of properly recording that and sharing that information with our with the younger generation, then it gets forgotten. And once it's forgotten, you can never recoup it.
You're absolutely right.
And but Gene, you wear another hat too here in the local community. Tell us about that.
I represent the Henry County members of the Snapping Shoals Electric Co-op on the cooperative board. Okay, and
for those that may not be familiar with it, what area of Henry County does Snapping Shoals EMC cover?
Basically, the Snapping Shoals territory in Henry County is the area kind of coming up from the south on the east side of Tussahaw Creek, up skirts around McDonough, and then on the east side of 42 Highway, and then the north end of the county. So it's kind of east, northeast.
So it's a pretty good chunk of Henry County.
Probably a third of the county at least.
And for those that are watching the show that are not familiar with what an EMC is, they get their power bill from Georgia Power. So explain a little bit about what an EMC is, what's the concept, and what are some of the advantages of an EMC?
Super. We'll go back, you know, the historian hat comes on sometimes.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to the beginning. Back, you know, in the early days of electrification, the Georgia Power and power companies in general only wanted to extend lines where there was lots of customers. They wanted to just go to the towns, and they would have lines through the country, but only to connect towns, because it's very expensive to run power lines and put in the facilities when you just have a farm every mile or so.
Exactly.
That's when the farmers started coming up with the idea of the electric cooperatives. Then during the 1930s, President Roosevelt signed the REA, Rural Electrification Administration Bill, which would allow groups of farmers throughout the country to form cooperatives, which are basically voluntary groups of neighbors who come together to do something for themselves that nobody else is willing to do for them. And these groups borrowed the money and put in these electric co-ops. Ours, Snapping Shoals EMC, started at Snapping Shoals at the very eastern end of Henry County. There at the South River, there was a group of guys put in a little dam and a small electric generating plant.
Wow.
The first year they put it in, they ran 90 miles of wire at a cost of $90,000 and served 270 customers in Henry and Newton and Rockdale counties. In 1938, it became the Snapping Shoals EMC, Electric Membership Corporation. We're still a cooperative. We're still member-owned. Any excess profits don't go to shareholders. They go right back after a course of time to the members who paid them. In July, we paid out $2.8 million to the members of Snapping Shoals EMC.
Wow.
For excess margins in past years.
You know, it's an amazing concept. It's similar to a credit union in the banking world.
That's
but what's so wonderful about it is that it's citizens working together.
It is.
It's not the government doing something for them. It's not some big mega corporation that's not from around here. It's the local people working together to achieve a common goal that's good for everybody's best interest.
That's right. It's a fantastic thing because it keeps the money in the community. So money that's paid back as excess margins comes back to the members. Money that member has moved away or whatever, and we can't find them to pay them those margins back, goes into scholarships for people who live in the territory, kids. We have something called the Washington Youth Tour, where we send a group of young people to Washington, D.C. every year to learn about our country and learn about our republic. We do sponsorships of grants for teachers in schools in the territory who have an idea of something they would like to do educationally in their school, but they can't otherwise get the money.
Great.
So it's great because you keep the money that's paid in by the members of Snapping Shells EMC stay here in the territory.
And that's one of the things that has really destroyed our economy in many places around the country, is that money that is spent on various things, including utilities, ends up moving out of the community, and that causes an economic depression in the community when that happens. Do you have any idea as far as the total number of people that are served by Snapping Shells?
Well, I tell you, we started out at 270 members back in the 30s. We have 95,000 meters now, and as you know, a household represents multiple individuals. Right. So it's I would say probably in the 250,000 range, because our territory is much bigger than just eastern Henry County. It's big parts of Rockdale County and Newton County. Good bit of south of DeKalb County is Snapping Shells EMC, and then small portions of Walton and Morgan and Jasper and Butts counties. So it's about 8 counties overall, but 4 of the counties constitute most of the members. And
tell us, so it's a co-op.
Right.
The actual customers are the ones that own the co-op.
Yes.
So how does this voting work where you have regional representatives?
Right. Every year we have an annual meeting for our members, and everyone who's a member pays a power bill, has the right and the opportunity to come to the annual meeting and vote on the directors of the co-op. To be a director, you also have to be a member of the co-op. I told you we have the 8 counties, but it's divided up into 4 districts. Our district here is Henry, and the small portion of Butts County is the 4th district of Snapping Shells EMC. To serve on the board, you have to reside in that district, but you are elected by everyone who attends the meeting. So we had 4 seats come up this time. One, the gentleman from Newton County did not have opposition, but the Henry and Rockdale and DeKalb County representatives had opposition this time, and were voted on by the members at large.
So you live in this district representing Henry County and part of Butts County, and so this is the area you represent, but you're voted on by everyone that shows up at the meeting.
Right,
gets a vote.
And I serve the whole territory.
And
but they want to keep representation, so all the representatives don't end up being from one county.
Absolutely.
Which is a great idea.
Absolutely. Now, this particular election, normally when you think about EMC and board members voting in those kind of things, it's very boring. I'm sorry, but it's just the way life is. Right. There's nothing to it. Who's going to spend the time and effort to run against someone for that kind of position? Because all it is work on your part. Right. And so this was a little bit different election this cycle. Tell us why. It
was, Ray. I tell you, one of the 2 main goals that we have at Snapping Shells EMC are to have affordable power rates for our members. We're nonprofit. Our goal is to have affordable power. Dependable power is the other one. And to have dependable power, and affordable power, you need multiple sources of generation. We right now get most of our generation from natural gas, which right now is the cheapest. 3 or 4 years ago,
I'm sure the other customers appreciate that, by the way.
3 or 4 years ago, natural gas was one of the most expensive sources of generation, but the price is way down right now. We have nuclear, we have coal, we have some renewable energy in the mix. But the goal is to have not only cheap power now, we want to have a mix where in future days we can have affordable power. That led us, because a lot of the coal infrastructure is aging, to several years ago join with other co-ops to permit a plant called Plant Washington down at Sandersville, Georgia, Washington County, which would be a coal-fired plant. It will be, if and when it's constructed, the cleanest coal-fired plant ever built in the United States. But because of the opposition of certain environmental groups to coal-fired generation or the use of coal at all, they've had us in court all through the permitting process. It's just been a multi-million-dollar expense to defend ourselves. We have the permits. We were going by the law. The state recognizes it's a good thing.
Right.
We've had support from officials, and the courts have said you're doing the right thing. But it's still very expensive to be right. you still have to defend yourself when somebody takes you to court.
Now let me stop you right there. So it's a clean coal generating facility, but still opposition. Now, folks, you want to hear about this story because it's important. If you say, I'm not even a member of the Snapping Shoals EMC, it's still going to be important to you because of the information we're about to give you when we come back, because they're not just coming after the Snapping Shoals EMC. You can mark it down. You're next on the target. On the target list if you're not a member of Snapping Shoals EMC. So don't go anywhere. We're going to share the rest of this story with you and the information you need to know and need to be able to share with your neighbors coming up in just a minute.